Hello everyone, we're here at the Real World AI Summit. I have Yat with me. Welcome Yat.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to talk to you. Normally people ask you questions about AI and gaming. We're going to talk a bit more about DePIN today.
Please.
But don't hesitate to also get into the other topics.
Of course.
Everything's interesting.
Of course. Yeah, let's go for it.
When we look at the current state of AI and crypto, what are the problems that you see that still need to be solved?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think there's a lot of things that sort of the promise of crypto is that it's a native currency for AI. There's a lot of utility around that. You know, if you think about the growth of agentic AI, actually tokens is a mechanism where an AI has true power because now they can actually generate their own tokens and they can pay people, right?
Yeah.
So in that way, that's interesting. But that system hasn't yet fully developed. Part of it has to do with cost. Part of it has to do with scalability, right? And of course, I think the biggest challenge that we have right now is how do you make sure that AI infrastructure is truly decentralized?
Yeah.
Right? When you think about where all of the compute's taking place, it's taking place in a very centralized area. You know, so we're backing obviously DePIN projects, for instance, that help to have more decentralized compute. But that's not very useful if most of that decentralized compute is then outsourced to Amazon, for instance, right?
Yeah.
So you've got those type of sort of scenarios that we're dealing with. But again, that will be solved over time, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that we in particular are interested in is how do we get to more mass utility adoption for AI usage in things like gaming, for instance, right? So NPC AI is actually sort of very, very actively used, but the biggest issue is the cost, right?
Yeah.
So the gaming model doesn't support a full stack sort of LLM deployment into an NPC model. It's just too expensive. So again, optimizing for that cost so that you can have a very immersive AI experience at a minimal cost is basically where we're going to get to, but we're not quite there yet. And once that happens, I think we're going to get an explosion of AI usage. Because I think most people don't realize that, sure, ChatGPT is super popular, but most of the AI is actually used inside games, even if it's very primitive.
Yeah, that's a good
NPCs, right?
NPC.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good use case as well for AI, I think.
That's
but
right.
That's not groundbreaking. That's not going to change the world, right?
So I would argue it will change the world.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, you know, that's how some people also sometimes would say, well, gaming hasn't changed the world.
Yeah.
Not true at all, right? But it's not necessarily in the direct effects, it's in the derivative effects.
Yes.
If we didn't have gaming, we wouldn't have NVIDIA. If we
Sure.
wouldn't have NVIDIA, we wouldn't have the GPUs that power this entire AI industry the way it is right now, right?
Yeah.
And also mining in the early days with Bitcoin, for instance,
Yes,
and Ethereum,
yes.
right? So the second order effects actually often surprise us because we don't imagine that at the moment in time. But because there was a gaming use case, there's 3.4 billion people who play games.
Yeah.
They're driving the industry forward. And interesting enough, from a culture perspective, and then because of gaming, also we have gamification. All the interfaces and the design of DeFi, the UX, those experiences come from making better and better games, better and better storytelling, for us and make better, compelling products that we use as a user.
Yeah.
Right? I would argue that if we didn't have games and gamification, we wouldn't actually have better UX and better products.
Yeah.
So now that means for AI, can we predict when we have billions of people using AI on a daily basis with NPCs what will happen? No. However, there will be ideas that emerge from it.
Yes.
Right? For instance, right now we can only really imagine AI being used in certain ways because of the fact that the interface has a limitation.
Yes.
Right? But imagine if you actually open it up to an NPC. You know, could that mean that the NPC could travel from game to game, right? And stored in the form of an NFT, right? As an example, right? I don't know, but the point is that it opens up a lot more,
yeah.
right? So there's a lot of areas that could develop, and so turn into more groundbreaking. Also, I think we build relationships with sort of characters that we do inside games that can come alive more so than today. For instance, people use ChatGPT just to sort of get sort of psychoanalysis and make friendships in a way and support them in a way. Like I had a bad day, what do you say, right? So that's just on text basis. Again, using the experience of games, you can take that to another level.
Yeah. And now these things I see as online things, right? But we're at the Real World AI Summit.
Yes.
What excites you most, or where you think the breakthrough will come for the real world AI and the convergence of crypto, DePIN, and AI?
Well, first of all, I think the bridge with real-world assets is a big one because most of the world is still not on crypto rails.
Yeah.
Well, that means they have to get adjusted to the world of crypto, which means that they have to do it with constructs and assets they know from before. So that's why stablecoins is a good mechanism because if I have a stablecoin, I understand the dollar in the real world. So if I can use the dollar in the digital world, okay, I get it. There's a way I can adopt it and use it, right? But then, of course, how do I use it? So, for instance, I think in the future, our interface will be through an AI. I don't think our interface will be, using MetaMask or Phantom Wallet or sort of interfacing just going to tell your AI what to do, and he'll do it for you, right?
Yeah.
And I also don't think it'll be just one AI. But the point is that we're going to be using AI through a human language interface or some language interface that we're most comfortable with, and then basically it'll do the job for us, right?
Yeah.
Which means that the entire construct of how we interact with people is going to be entirely different than before, right?
Yeah.
And so when you think about sort of what is a normal interface, it's our eyes, right? That's how we input information. Now at this point, the AI is actually the one presenting it, which means the AI, like an assistant, is going to be the one that actually controls a lot of what you get, right? So there's a lot more power inherent within that, right? So these are the elements that are going to sort of completely change the way we interface and operate, which means that we have to basically sort of, when you think about the interactions with crypto, right? They're the ones who are going to be doing the 24/7 trading and the activities on chain. And this is where you need the auditable track as well. If they do something good or bad, you can at least look at that from a history rather than basically trying to police every step of the way, because frankly, you won't be able to keep up with your AI.
So true. Data is a very important topic as well, and
Yes.
we see a lot of projects here that are collecting different types of real world data. I'm wondering if Animoca Brands is focusing on any specific verticals there, or what excites you on that front?
So what excites us really, with the upcoming launch of Mocha Chain with the Mochaverse, we actually have a data layer where you can basically store your data and use it for things like AI and get paid and get value for that. I think it's a very important topic, because you need to have sovereign ownership of your data for the AI to basically be able to use it and then pay you something. And this is why token economies is interesting, because that's actually the way in which you can scale rewards for a large group of users in a decentralized but scalable manner, right? So we think that's very important. The other thing that's really important is digital identity, right? And again, that's a very key emphasis, because you have to build an online reputation stack. And I just want to clarify, we don't think that reputation must mean a human reputation. It could be an AI reputation that's an agentic AI that you trust. I mean, how many people might trust an AI to trade better than a human, right? For instance, or an AI to make better decisions than a human. That's okay. They build a trust index that can then be scored. And the important thing is, can it be done in a way that is anonymized, right? Privacy preserving. Not truly anonymous, but privacy preserving. And that's where blockchain technology is really, really helpful, right? Where you can make introductions, you can make referrals, basically attesting your reputation to another wallet or to another user, right? Which has a consequence that if that user or that wallet does something bad, you have a negative consequence too. Just like in real world, right? If I make an introduction to someone, he does good things, my reputation increases. He does bad things, my reputation also decreases, right? It's not just like I introduce you, it's your business, right? There's always an impact, right? And that's basically what we can now do in a decentralized, scalable manner, enhancing trust overall. So sort of digital ID and the data layer is part of that. Because if I don't know if it's you, then the data is also irrelevant, because I don't really know who it is. And that's basically one of the problems that we have in the traditional sort of data world. You have all this data obfuscated, but here I can at least make that association, except it's your data, meaning you give me permission, as opposed to it's stored in a central server who can do whatever they want to do.
Yeah. And I hear here that trust is a very important thing, right?
It is.
You got to trust the counterparties, you got to trust the apps you're using.
Yes.
But crypto and AI feels like still the terms that are not really trusted by the masses. What do you think could be the breakthrough that actually brings the trust to these industries?
So, I mean, to me, if you might remember, digital music, MP3s, right? MP3 was a term that everyone understood in the music industry. However, it was implied with piracy, with copying, with all the bad stuff, right? And so now we don't talk about MP3s anymore. We just talk about digital music. I think crypto, NFTs, blockchain will be the same. It's infrastructure we use, in our digital lives, but we're not going to specifically term it that way, right? But we're at the early stages. We have to go through that evolution. So I think, just to me, it's we're not going to be bothered about it one way or the other.